Hi, this is Esther with Discover Your Origins. In this video, I'm going to continue my descendancy research on the Snellgrove family, specifically the Henry J. Snellgrove family. And in a previous video, I had explored Johnny William Snellgrove. You can see here I've got him. He's the oldest child. I went ahead and also did all the record attaching and whatnot for Willis. There wasn't anything there that was unusual or different or unexpected, so I just went ahead and finished him up. And now I'm on to Eva, and you can see here in Family Search, that's on the left side of my screen here, Eva is not listed as a child. And so I thought that might be good to demonstrate how to add a new person to Family Search. But as usual, I start first in Ancestry to just kind of go through the record hints there. Eva was added to my ancestry tree because she's listed in the 1920 US Census. She was listed as 12 years old. You can see here she's a child. We need to add her to, or get her fully filled out here on Ancestry on my tree there, and then we'll add her to Family Search. So let's start on Ancestry, and you can see I've got 6 record hints for her here. And as I look through these record hints, I'm getting these record hints where she has a different last name. So this would have been when she's older. So for example, this record hint is for 1940. She's probably married and has a different last name. And so this says Crisp in the 1940 US Census. And then the Social Security Death Index, it says Cripe. And if we were to look closer at the 1940 census, I believe it does say Crisp, which is a little bit different from the death index. But I would think the death index is probably correct since that's an official government document. Whereas on a census, you have the numerator and they may hear something and write it down, or a neighbor may have mispronounced it or something. They aren't necessarily talking to the person whose information they're gathering. And you can see here it is spelled C-R-I-S-P. So we'll just keep looking here. We've got a divorce record, death index record. We've got Cripe again. So that's probably the actual spelling. One of the things that's missing here for Eva is something which ties her to her parents. All of these record hints are for when she's older in life. And this might be a case where I'm going to go and look at the ancestry member trees and see if it provides some additional insight. And you can see here we've got some trees here from different users, and they list LG Cripe. This says Lewis Crisp, which is probably from the 1940 census, and nothing on this tree. But it does have a matching birth and death dates. This is one of those times where I'm going to just take a leap of faith and say that Eva Snellgrove married somebody named Lewis Cripe and just kind of go forward. By doing that, it creates the opportunity for Ancestry to provide additional record hints. And we can do some additional searching in their database to see if we can find some other records. Let's start by attaching these record hints and see where we go. And there's nothing different about this on what I've demonstrated previously, so I may speed up this part of the video where I'm adding records, but just know if I do run into anything interesting, I'll stop and explain. Okay, so I've completed adding all of the available record hints. I've added a spouse and a child. There appears to have been a divorce in 1947. So when you see that, sometimes a person may remarry and have a different last name. However, there's a death index record which shows her married name from her first marriage, and so maybe she didn't remarry in this case. If there is a divorce, sometimes a woman remarries and has a different last name, and so any death records would be with that last name, and so you may have to do a little bit of digging. Ancestry is really good at providing those type of records as record hints, even when there's a variation in the last name. That's why I recommend starting on Ancestry, because it's a little better on some of the hinting. Right now, I've just made a guess that she is the daughter and had married this Jack Lewis Cripe. So I'm going to hit search and see what else I can dig up with Ancestry. Okay, this says that her spouse is Lawrence J. Kripe instead of Lewis. It's possible that he was linked incorrectly, or it's possible that his name is actually Lawrence and Lewis is a nickname. And I'm curious, this says that he's buried in the Evergreen Cemetery. Let's go back and see where Eva is buried, also in the Evergreen Cemetery. It says the plot is American Tribune. That sounds like from a newspaper. Let's look at this picture here. Okay, so we've got Lawrence buried here. Can't tell if that's Eva that's buried there, which makes me wonder if that divorce record is not right, because if they divorced, they wouldn't be buried next to each other. But it's hard to see. They must be buried next to each other. So that changes things a little bit. We've got a Lawrence J. Kripe with the birth and death years there. So this is probably their Find a Grave record. I mean, it's in the right location and everything, so I'm going to go ahead and add this. I'm going to have to look a little bit closer at Jack's record hints, because his birth year was previously 1887, which would have made him significantly older, and this 1903 birth date seems better, closer in age. She was born in 1906. Yeah, we're going to have to look a little bit closer at that. Okay, I'm going to just hit this search button again and see what else I can find. All right, so this is a World War II draft card. Let's add that. I mean, it seems likely that it's a match. Eva Kripe would be listed as a relative. Yes. Name a person who will always know your address. Mrs. Eva Kripe, of Lawrence J. Kripe. So let's add that. I'm always surprised when I do a search in Ancestry or FamilySearch thinking it'll be easy because the name is unusual, or at least unusual to me. And I'm often surprised that it's really not that unusual. Like Eva Kripe, and there's all of these different Eva Kripes all over the country. So not unusual. And here we've got just all kinds of different records for women named Eva Kripe. So yeah, not as unusual as you might think. Okay, well, I think for the moment this is probably good enough. This Eva Snellgrove in Macon, Georgia, 1949 directory might be her. I don't know. We'd need to look at it a little bit closer. This 1950 census, though, is probably her. So let's click through and look at that. Okay, so Eva Kripe, born about 1910, keeping house by herself. Let's see what her marital status is. It says married. Let's actually look at the record. Let's find her. Okay, she's living on her own. So possibly she was divorced. Does she say married here? Yeah, that's married. Curious. I mean, the location is correct. Waycross, Ware, Georgia. That's where a lot of Snellgroves lived. So I'm going to attach it to her. We have that divorce record from 1947, so it makes sense. But if they were buried next to each other, maybe they reconciled later. That's definitely a part of their story. I don't know. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to stop and add Eva to FamilySearch. So let me get that screen smaller. Okay, so here we have Henry J. Snellgrove. We've got his children, and Eva is not here. So let's add her. So we'll click on Add Child, and we will put in what we know of her name and her birth and death information. Now, I do like to put in as much complete information here because if FamilySearch cannot find her existing in the database, then it will go ahead and add her. And if I don't put in everything, then I'll have to go back and add it later. So I just like to preemptively assume she's not in there and put all the complete birth and death dates and not just partial. Okay, so we'll hit next. Okay, so this said no match was found, so we're going to create a person. Okay, so there she is, Eva Snellgrove. So now we need to go through the same process that we did before. It takes a minute for FamilySearch to start offering up record hints. And so I might look for a few by just hitting the FamilySearch button there and searching records and see what I can find. Okay, here's that 1920 census record for her. So let's add that. Now, we do know that her last name was Kripe when she got married, so we can just come in here and do a search for Eva Kripe. And there's one of her Social Security records. Now, this one is the Social Security numerical identification file, and very often they had to put their parent names on the application. So here we have her name, we've got her birth and death date, and no parents. Shoot. It would have been nice to have her parents listed. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go back after I've attached those records. I'm going to go back to Eva's page. Let's go back here and let me refresh this just to see if FamilySearch is going to serve up any more record hints for me. Okay, they don't, which is fine. I think once we add in her spouse, that will help. So I'm going to go back over here to the spouses page, and I'm going to start going through Jack and see if we can't figure out, is his name Lawrence or Jack Lewis? Okay, so Louis Crisp. Okay, this is interesting. There is a headstone for a Louis Crisp. So we need to look at this a bit closer. So what I'm going to do is go back here, because that headstone photo is very different from the one that was connected to Eva. And I am thinking these are two different people. Okay, so I made a classic mistake. Louis Crisp is different, and there is a Louis or Lawrence Kripe, and there's a Louis Crisp, and they both married an Eva, and they had a daughter named Helen. So what I need to do probably is disconnect this 1930 census record, because look at the location, Moccasin, Rabun, Georgia. That is a different location than some of these other records. This is Moccasin, Rabun, Georgia. And this divorce record is for Jack Lewis. So I need to disconnect these three things and also remove this Helen Kripe, because she's not Helen Kripe. She's Helen Crisp. Now, when you remove records on Ancestry, it does not remove them from the timeline. So you have to come over here and also remove them from the timeline. Okay, so that explained a few things that I was having trouble with because Eva did not divorce her husband. They are buried next to each other. And that makes sense now that I had mixed up two people. If you make a mistake like that, it's okay. You can undo it. And sometimes I just take a leap of faith and I accept a record hint, but then as I'm analyzing things and correlating things and seeing if they make sense, I go back and I remove them. I know that that's kind of a controversial thing to do in Ancestry because people prefer if you only add things that you're sure about to your tree. But this is my working tree and it is going to have mistakes and it's going to have assumptions. And I do try to do the very best I can to make sure it's right and I don't leave things hanging or mixed up. For example, this thing where I'm now just going through Lawrence and Eva, I'm doing it in one session. So I try to complete it so that it's not there hanging out on Ancestry, causing confusion for other people. I don't walk away, I fix it, and then I walk away. Just to provide you some encouragement if you're not really sure. And very often I do take a leap of faith in Ancestry just because the record hinting system is so good. And so sometimes I'll take a leap of faith and it provides me the record hints that I need as I go along to help confirm that assumption that I made. In other cases, like in this one, it provided me record hints that weren't quite right. And I needed to take a minute and look at them and analyze them and then decide, okay, I mixed up two people. And it's totally okay. You know, this is your tree. You can do it however you want. But you can see I was being cautious about what I was adding to FamilySearch because FamilySearch is a one world tree where one person profiles and you don't want to mix those up on FamilySearch because that creates an even bigger mess and confusion for people. Where it's your own personal tree, you can do what you want, but do the very best you can, of course. Let's continue to go forward here. Okay, so we've got now some record hints for Lawrence Kripe. And okay, so there wasn't a divorce, but Lawrence was in trouble. That might explain why Eva was alone in 1950, because perhaps her husband was in jail. And it looks like possibly he wasn't in jail. Like there's a 1950 census record. I'm going to go through the record hints now for Lawrence Kripe, add those to my Ancestry profile, and then come back and add Lawrence to FamilySearch. Okay, so I've gone ahead and added all the available record hints to Lawrence J. Kripe. And if you're curious, he was convicted of a misdemeanor and given a 12-month sentence in jail, which seems rather harsh in our day for a misdemeanor, but that's what it was then. The 1950 US Census indicated that Lawrence was separated and he was living in Florida, whereas Eva was in Georgia and she listed herself as married. So I'm assuming they eventually worked it out. Anyway, we're going to add Lawrence to FamilySearch. So let me make my screen here smaller and we're going to add a spouse. When we added Eva, she was not in FamilySearch at all. Though I was adding a new person completely. In this case, Lawrence is in FamilySearch. You can see his birth date matches and the suggested parents also match. And so I'm going to go ahead and click Add Match. Okay, so now we need to go and look at Lawrence's page and make sure we have his full birth and death date added to FamilySearch. And it's not, we can see here we've got a couple of record hints, but let's add his birth and death date. You can see that his person profile was added by the US Census Project volunteers in 2022. And very often those kind of profiles are incomplete and may be made up with whatever the name was in the census. So if the person used a nickname in the census, that is what their profile has been created with. And so you may have to clean up the record with more complete information if you ever come across something like this. All right, I'm going to hit save. Okay, so that probably means that the father and the mother also need some additional information. And I won't do it right now on camera, but very often when I run into something like this where it appears to have been a US Census volunteer added profile, I'll go in and add some do just a tiny bit of research and add it to their profile just to make sure there's not duplicates already in the system for this couple, and just kind of clean things up a little bit. I will do that off camera with this profile. And also, I will go through and add all the record hints for Lawrence. And yeah, you can see here some more popped up, so that we just fill out his page more and have his profile done. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to show you how to add these sources which exist on Ancestry onto FamilySearch. So we're just going to speed through this in your time, but it'll take me a minute here to get the rest of these record hints attached. Okay, so I've completed attaching the record hints for Lawrence, and there were a couple of records on Ancestry that didn't move over or exist in FamilySearch. And so I want to add these additional record hints to his page because it helps fill in some blanks about possibly why he and his wife were separated for a little bit, and just kind of fills out his story more. So to do that, on Ancestry, there's a little FamilySearch icon. So you have to be logged into FamilySearch in order to do this. Okay, so it does a preliminary search. Sometimes it doesn't always find it, but then you can put in the FamilySearch ID number. In this case, it found it, and you can compare the two profiles. So we'll connect the person. Okay, so once that is done, you can now compare the person on FamilySearch. So we'll just do that. All right, so this on this screen here, on Ancestry, you have the FamilySearch profile on the left and the Ancestry profile on the right, and you can share some of this data between the two. And you can come down here, and it doesn't. You can click on these, and it just basically checks the box for you. If you were to click it on the FamilySearch side, it's going to add it to the Ancestry side. In this case, I just want to move over this convict record and this obituary. So by doing that, it's going to send a link to FamilySearch. So I'll show you what that looks like here as soon as I hit the Save Changes. Okay. So now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to refresh the page. And I'll go to sources, and the ones that I added, you can see here, are these two that have the world icon next to them. You can see here's the convict record one and the obituary. So by clicking on this, it gives you a link back to the record on Ancestry. Now I've found that sometimes these links change, and so it's not an ideal type of citation really, because URLs are constantly changing. So you may run across this on some FamilySearch profiles, and you click on the link and it doesn't take you anywhere. It gives you an error message. If that happens, you can then search for the name of the record collection and then create a better citation. For the moment, that's good enough for what I wanted to do. So anyway, there is Lawrence. Now there's probably some additional work that I could do here. You can see Ancestry suggesting possible marriage records. And also off camera, I'm going to clean up his parents. But that's how I go about adding people to FamilySearch as I'm doing descendancy research. And you will find that there are people missing in FamilySearch that need to be added as you do your research. Of course, we're just only adding people who are deceased. We don't want to bother adding living people to FamilySearch. It just kind of clutters up the tree for you, because only you can see those living people that you added. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments below, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.